It is Friday Fun Forum, and welcoming in for, I think he's done this a couple of times, hasn't he? Miles Davis, my old China.
I love baked beans, mate. I'll tell you what, I can't have a full cooked breakfast without baked beans. If I go into a restaurant, cafe that hasn't got them, then I'll go to the shop next door, the dairy, and bring them and make them cook them for me.
There we go. See? I like baked beans with the sausages, Miles, but they're $4.50 a can now.
Oh, yeah, I know. Maybe even a bit more than that. And have you noticed that they've reduced the size and the number of sausages in there? There always used to be 8. Always used to be 8. But now, there used to be 8 in the good old days. But now, I've had one the other week. I only had 5.
What?
I've written to my MP.
Good. I've gone straight to the top, Miles. Well done. Yeah, Kelly said that. She said she suggested that we've got less saucies than normal. It's shrinkflation, I think it's called, Miles. Hey, babes, let's jump into it.
Indeed.
Let's stay with that, actually, because I just spoke with John Duffy, CEO from Consumer, about Foodstuffs North Island, who was fined $3.25 million for lodging anti-competitive covenants on land to exclude competitors. Now, they say it was they didn't really mean to do it. They as they go on. What do you make of the fact that, we've still only got the two, haven't we? Foodstuffs and Woolies. And until we get more competition, we're always going to pay more for our groceries.
Yeah, very much so. Firstly, the first thing I'll say, when you see that story, you see $3.25 million. Who gets that money? How does it help you or me or, anyone else in New Zealand that is struggling to pay their bills and buy food to feed their family? It sounds like, you've been punished, but have they? Or is it just going to stop them doing it again and maybe in 50 years' time? I remember, you live on the shore. When I was living in Sunnynook, I lived there for 18 years, but the Pack and Save in Wairau, there was another outfit was trying to stop it, and it took about 20 years. They had the land, I think, for something like 20 years. I may be slightly out in the numbers, but they muck around and they put those things, both lots do it, and they try and stop a competitor putting their supermarket on there.
Yep.
And, it's bad for the consumer. And when I go back to the UK, you always think, in London, everything's going to be expensive. It is so much cheaper. And I know they've got a bigger market, but they've got far more competition. You've got all the major ones, the Tesco's and the Sainsbury's and all those, Waitrose. But then you've got Aldi and Lidl, the German interlopers here, who are real basic foodstuffs and get the really lowest prices. And, it's so much better for the consumer.
Yeah, gosh, I remember all them when I was over there, you're right. When you consider, like you said, $3.25 million, right, as a fine, it's a $25 billion industry. It's but a drop in the bucket, isn't it?
Yeah, well, exactly. But what I'm saying is, though, if you punish them more, where are they going to get the money from? They're just going to bung it on our prices, aren't they? It's a statement being made, but I'd rather them see, A, get punished by that, but B, let's be punished by introducing some sort of legislation or something that can help the consumer. I don't know how much gouging they actually do, to be perfectly honest. I think profit margins may not be as big as we think they are, but I also don't think there's many poor supermarket owners.
Yeah. I remember last year there was, when people were starting to get, up in arms, and there was this $1 million a week profit bandied about, but I don't know if that was true. I think it was, that old kind of social media stuff, not sure. Miles, let's move on. When you were at school, were you good at mathematics?
Shall I tell you how good I was? Do you want to know how good I was?
Go on.
I was a little bit of a sort of miscreant youth when I got into my later years at school. When I was a kid, I was brilliant. At primary school, I was adult in manner, as it said in my report, really helpful. And then I went downhill once I was about 14. And I walked into the first week of my second term of fifth form maths, which is our last year before you do your O-levels or your school C or whatever it is over here.
Yeah.
And the teacher said to me, he said, Miles, there's a desk in the corner of the room over there facing the wall. He said, I want you to sit there. He said, I don't care what you do. I don't want you to disrupt anyone else. So the last 2 terms of maths leading up to my exams, I did nothing. I got an A. So I was just bored with it. It was easy to do. So I'm good with it. But I know what you're talking about, the curriculum.
Yes,
what do you
make
the
it
biggest
count.
issue is? What do you reckon the biggest issue is? Is it the kids or the curriculum, or is it the fact that they're being taught by teachers who aren't that good at maths themselves?
I think it's a kind of, yes. I think you are right. I think the teachers now, apparently going forward, any candidates for the teacher training programs would need to pass NCEA Level 2 maths. I thought they would have anyway.
Well, I mean, surely you should be able to do that if you're going to be teaching kids.
Yes.
And that area, when you're teaching kids that young, I mean, that's where they're going to really get the grasp on it at that stage. Because by the time you get up into secondary school, you're going to really start struggling because it gets far more complex.
Yeah.
We never bloody use it. To be perfectly honest, I think the basics should be taught, and if you want to go and be a rocket scientist, then you go on to this other stuff. Yeah. And they keep changing the bleeding thing. The order, when I was at school, the order now for which you do the equation, if something's times this divided by that, and the order that you do each facet of that has changed since I was at school. So God knows what the kids are going to be doing with it.
Yeah, I agree that something has to be done, but it's they're going to roll out new workbooks, teacher guides, and other resources, and they'll do things like assess twice a year on the new maths curriculum for the students. Which, I mean, I think that's good. You've got to see where they're going. As usual, the detractors say, oh, it's too much too soon. The teachers won't be able to keep up. It's like, well, you're going to have to, because we're. That you're there to teach, so just get on with it.
It's basically almost as if the teachers are being held to account as well as the pupils, and they don't quite like it. But maths is important. I think they're doing the same in the UK. I think Rishi Sunak, before he got kicked out, was introducing a similar thing.
We have got Miles Davis on our Friday Fun Forum. Are you in Wellington, Miles, still? Are you out of Wellington? Where are you?
No, I'm still in Wellington.
Yes. So you'll be familiar, obviously, with Thorndon Quay and the old debt that the Wellington City Council looks like they want to absorb to get your raised safety platforms going. About 5 of them.
It's honestly, it is absolutely. You drive in there, and I live out in the suburbs. I live out in Tarwa, and if I want to go down the sort of the bottom way, once I get to the bottom of Narrong the Gorge, I can go along and go through Thorndon Quay to get into town. It's an absolute nightmare, and I dread to think of the suffering that the businesses along there have gone through. I mean, it's bad enough with COVID and the cost of living increase and everything, but to have your whole roads dug up, and now they're also as well is parks are disappearing. It's all this. Who's going to go down the shops on their bike to pick up something of any size? And especially in Wellington weather, you're not going to be doing it. And as far as crossing the road, we want it all to be safe. Look left, look right. Look left, look right, then leg it. Why do we have to have these raised this and raised that? Why not just educate people, do not cross the road when there's vehicles coming?
And, the Wellington ratepayers are looking at about an 18.5% rate rise. And for even the councillors to consider spending, I think they need to find about $600,000 and borrow to raise these pedestrian crossings. They've decided they'll drop down to 2. They've agreed to drop down to 2 from 5. But I noted a couple of days ago, 3 of the councillors walked out of the meeting saying that they weren't They didn't want to, they haven't got enough information, and they wanted to see engineer work before they, made a decision. It was like, no, you don't need to be an engineer to know. It's a waste of money that the council and the people can't afford.
Yeah, it's awful, Leah. The council down here is really fractured, and unfortunately, we've got a mayor who's totally unfit for the job. She's got her own personal issues. She tries to put all as a down to mental health and autism and ADHD and every little thing she can do to try and put herself in a favourable light. But the fact is, she's an angry drunk. She's a Green when she said she was leaving the Green Party, and then she's gone back and rejoined it. She's overly aggressive and everything. I mean, Wayne Brown's pretty fronting up, but he's actually doing some things that make some sense. I wouldn't mind swapping him for Torrefano, to be perfectly honest. And this sort of thing here just divides it even further.
Yeah. That's why we love Miles. I love it. And she's an angry drunk. We're going to grab a break, Miles. And when we come back, we're going to discuss probably one of, the most controversial topics of the last week or so, the two boxers, Olympic boxers that have come under scrutiny. Iman Khalif of Algeria and Lin Yuting of Taiwan. Should they have been there? They supposedly failed gender eligibility tests. The world went crazy. We'll get Miles's thoughts on it when we come back here on the platform.